Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome to Coffee Talk. It is time for Coffee Talk, where we sit and we have a chat about the news and what is going on in the world today from at least an honest perspective, even if I'm not always right. I do my best. I do my best. And of course, you are probably seeing me on Coffee Talk on YouTube, and that is at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube or Prepper University on YouTube, being broadcast simultaneously at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on Twitter or Fistful of Radio, fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Friday at noon as I sit here and get ready to dig into the news. And of course, if you are listening and not watching, I will go through as many of the comments as I reasonably can so that you can keep up with the conversation as people make comments about my commentary from the news articles that I'll read off, as well as ask questions. And for those of you who can see, naturally there is Dusty sitting in Daniel's spot, and Daniel has to sit somewhere else, unfortunately, because she won't move. And that's how it goes as as I find myself surrounded by stray cats. And I'll go, well, they're not strays anymore if they're not leaving the house. But anyways, go ahead and acknowledge some of the people that have been able to jump in here. Helter is here today. Oops, there's a bunch of names popping up. D-Lo is here today. Dragon, Urban Angst, Fluke Man, Nathan Helix is here. Preparedness Veteran. Fluke Man says St. John Bed and Breakfast removed a Norwegian flag because they were called bigots and racists, as some people mistook it for the Confederate flag. Because you know how smart people are. I'll say it a million times. People are not that bright. And that doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me at all. The ignorance of it. I know somebody who was given a hard time about a Mississippi flag he wears on a hat because he was born in Mississippi, and it has the Union Jack in the corner, or had. I don't know if I forget if they changed the flag or not, but that's the flag he's familiar with. Michael Adams is here today. Paul DiMartino, he says, I appreciate your channel so much. It means a lot to me, brother. Keep up the good work. Praying for you and your family. I'm grateful for everything you put out, staying frosty. Well, I appreciate that, Paul. Thank you very much. Again, just try. And I assume you're talking about the Prepper University channel. I'm trying to keep it going, It's crushed by ScrewTube, but I put some common sense information out there just to get people thinking, And hey, if you process enough, sometimes that can save a life. Bulldozer is here. Monkey Boogers is here. And he says he's got a new gaming PC. What kind of gaming PC? And Bulldozer says, my prayers too, brother, every day. Much appreciated. I'll take all the prayers I can get. All the prayers I can get as we get ready to pop into the first news topic. It won't be what you expect. And I see Rodney's joined us here today as well. Good afternoon, Rodney, or good morning. And there's Daddy Nolly from Alaska. Glad you could pop in here today. First news article comes from ABC News. Former nurse now linked to 17 nursing home deaths. And you all know why I'm going to read this article. A former Pennsylvania nurse who in May has been accused of killing 2 patients with doses of insulin now faces more murder charges and has confessed to trying to kill 19 additional people at several locations, authorities said on Thursday. Heather Presdy, 41, is accused of administering excessive amounts of insulin to patients in her care, some of whom were diabetic and required insulin, and some of whom were not, according to the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office. In total, 17 patients have died who have been cared for by Presdy. Presdy has admitted to trying to kill 19 other patients with insulin at 5 different rehabilitation centers across the state as far back as 2020. And as recently as this year, the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office said. And that's her there. That's her mugshot. And it's kind of funny. I knew when I worked for Family Dollar stores way back in the early 2000s, I knew a Heather who kind of looked like this. And I was half wondering if it was her for a second, but it says Pennsylvania, but that doesn't mean that she was born in Pennsylvania. Anyways, the allegations against Miss Presdy are disturbing. It's hard to comprehend how a nurse trusted to care for her patients could choose to deliberately and systematically harm them, said Pennsylvania Attorney General Michael Henry. And I'll stop right there because Michael Henry is wrong, in my opinion. I have seen way too many stories like this of nurses, doctors, and other people that are in medical care profession deliberately harming patients up to and including murder. And this is no exception. And it's always a female. Males, you get males on malpractice and things like that. They make mistakes or they're arrogant. Doctors screw up and think they're better than sliced bread. But there's way too many females in the health profession, which is female dominated anyways, where stories like this pop up and incidences like this pop up. Or even if they're not killing people, they're being cruel. They're being cruel and nasty to people that are in their care. This story does not surprise me in the least. And it happens more often than you might think. And that's why I was showcasing this. All People is here. And Spectre is here as well. Oh, Monkey chiming in on the game. It says it's one of the VR gaming's NVIDIA RTX 4070. Okay. Preparedness Veteran says time for a double check 2-person administration. And Bulldozer says, look at her. She's got a God complex. Who lives and dies? Yeah. And Helter says it's crazy that people can be disciplined for bad behavior and even fired from other facilities and they still have a license and can get hired in other places. And Bulldozer says, don't date a nurse ever. Did you have a bad experience with that? And then Doug says, hello from Maxville, Ontario, Canada. Thanks for joining us today, Doug. And Dragon says, this happens more than you think. These nurses are not there to help you. It's just a job for most of them. Yeah, and you reach a breaking point because they don't care. Teachers too, and social workers, female-dominated professions. And I've seen some of the worst attitudes from these people, especially social workers. Good God. And these are people that can dismantle your life, send you to jail, take your kids. They've got a lot of power and authority, and they know it, and they will rub it in on you. This story does not surprise me. But when one of them is bad enough that it makes it into the news, I feel compelled to showcase it and talk about it really quickly. And it ties in with that whole Munchausen's by proxy, which I have discussed in the past and done videos on. And my videos on Munchausen by proxy have been taken down by ScrewTube, who don't want you to see that. They don't want you to see that there is a sickness there, that there is a problem that affects primarily females. Because almost 98, 99% of people with Munchausen's by proxy syndrome are going to be female. And they do stuff like this. Or they hurt people on the slide. They hurt their children. They hurt infants and babies and deny it. At least she admitted that what she was doing. Keisha's here today. Thanks for joining us, Keisha. And Bulldozer says, yes, Brenda in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Holy shit, she was pure evil after I got to know her. And you named her. Shame on you, Bulldozer. No, I totally empathize. I really do. I've been in a couple of bad relationships myself. I'm absolutely blessed to be in a good one now. Finally got it right. I finally got it right. And it took a long time. It took me taking almost a 3-year sabbatical from getting involved in any kind of relationship to get my head screwed on right, because, and I've talked about this before, as bad as my exes were, I still picked them, and I still stayed in the relationship trying to fix it, putting band-aids on bullet wounds, if you will, knowing it probably wasn't going to work. So I needed to fix whatever I was doing, as well as get away from their evil, if you will. But I took that time off and I got it right. Now this is an interesting article. This shocked me yesterday. I was actually surprised that they tied this in, and this is going to be from the Washington Post. This particular article is going to be from the Washington Post, and Keisha says it's on that other subject. It's hard to leave sometimes. Yeah, because you keep trying to fix it. You keep saying to yourself, well, maybe if I do this, or maybe if I convince the person of this, or show them this, they'll reciprocate. But some people never learn. And, you can overlook a lot of red flags that way and get deeper into a relationship. And then you feel like, oh, well, I've been doing it this long, so you get that kind of an attitude. No, there's a time at which you need to walk away. Fluke Man says explains why so many adults had shit childhoods and kids nowadays are doomed to repeat it. And that is that generational curse is what that is, because they'll reflect that if they don't learn to escape it. Oh, Gary Edwards is here today. Glad you could make it. Bulldozer says, glad for you, brother. I'm happy. I'm single, deep in the mountains, but mountain girls are nuts too. Okay. Yeah, I found somebody who fit really well, that that we're a good match for each other, and we get along famously. There is no fighting, no arguing, nothing in our relationship. But anyways, on to the story. It says House passes $14 million, or excuse me, 14 billion. It's actually 14.5. That's not correct. House passes $14 billion in Israel aid with costly cuts to the IRS. That's what surprised me. I knew that aid package was going to go through anyways, because hell, the Biden administration will pass any damn aid package if it's leaving the country. But right here, we have it. The Republican-controlled House on Thursday approved legislation to send roughly $14 billion in emergency aid to Israel and cut about the same amount from the Internal Revenue Service. In a deeply divided vote on a measure the Senate leaders said they won't take up, and President Biden has already threatened to veto. Biden in October requested $106 billion in emergency foreign aid for the Ukraine in their defense against Russia's invasion. And that's like, what, the fourth package that he's authorized? Israel's response to, where are we? Okay. Israel's response to Hamas's attacks and counter Chinese influence in the Pacific. New House Speaker Mike Johnson chose to split the Israel funding off from the rest of the aid and declared the House would cut the budget to pay for the spending to keep the federal deficit from growing. But the cuts to the IRS would actually cost taxpayers money, meaning the aid for Israel would add to the deficit even more than just borrowing the $14 billion Biden wants to send, according to a nonpartisan analysis by the Congressional Budget Office. The move would reduce the taxes agency's ability to audit high-income earners and tax evaders, costing taxpayers $26.8 billion in lost revenue. That's bullshit. And the problem with the IRS as it's structured right now is they're not going after and auditing high-income earners and tax evaders. They're going after everybody else. They didn't implement, starting officially this year, a $600 limit, because they're going after high-income earners. If you sold $600 worth of stuff on eBay to get rid of some junk in your garage, and you have to fill out a W-2, there's a problem. They're going after you and me. They're not going after millionaires and billionaires. That's a lie, first of all. Second of all, you can't predict how much earnings are going to be lost, and that's what they're saying here. It's going to cost taxpayers $26.8 billion in lost tax revenue. You have no way of knowing that. You're going to predict how much revenue you're going to finagle out of people. How much does it cost for you to get that money? they're going after everybody else. So for whatever reason that they decided to make this stipulation in order to agree to the foreign aid package, I'm for it if it'll slow down the IRS, because you and I are the ones they're going to pick on, not millionaires and billionaires. Millionaires and billionaires can afford accountants and tax attorneys, and they have all their I's dotted and T's crossed so that they don't have to deal with the IRS. There's very few people, I believe, out there deliberately trying to do something shady. You can call it a loophole if you want to, but if it's legal, it's legal. You and I, we can't afford, most of us cannot afford a tax attorney or an accountant or both to fix problems if something happens. I mean, seriously. And Daddy Nolly says, bullshit, we should help our own people. I agree, we should. It's really disheartening how much money goes out of the country, or how much money is going towards illegal immigrants in this country. That's your tax dollars at work just being thrown all over the place, and we have no say in the matter. No say in the matter. Helter says there'll be no protests or complaints as long as the general population is passive and distracted. The House can do as they please, and those who survive will be left to contemplate. And Preparedness says throwing billions and billions around the world, yet budgets are being cut within your nation. It's criminal. I agree. I agree with that. And Fluke Man says, who's going to report to the IRS for having a garage sale? That's what they want. That's what they're getting to that level where you can't do anything. You can't do anything. You can't earn anything. $600 in total sales. And all of these companies have to comply with that. eBay, Macari, wherever. And that's so trivial. That is so trivial. And there's a lot of states that require you to get a permit for a yard sale. And that's how they track you. Bulldozer says we spend so much money on the Ukraine and zero on veterans like me. My left side joint replacement by civilians, which I'm glad for, but still the VA has to check their boxes. And here goes Dragon. No taxation without representation. We the people are being screwed, and they'll come and blame us when we hit the debt ceiling again. It is taxation without representation. And I'll remind you all, of course, that from the government's perspective, your representation is your elected official, your lawmaker that you allegedly voted for or didn't vote for, as the case may be. You might have voted for the other guy. You might not have voted at all. Someone in a grave might have voted. Your pets might have voted. RPG characters on some game online might have voted. Who knows? But the point is, that's supposed to be your representation, but you can't control what they do. So you're not being represented. I thought we fought a war about that, didn't we? Once upon a time, our ancestors. Urban says, I'm not of the opinion the aid to Israel is essential. If Jerusalem falls to any of the Arab states, it will not be diversity that follows, but to make people accept it, they must pick on the IRS. And Bulldozer says, yeah, your pets might have voted, ? That came up. It was a few years ago. I forget. It might have been Illinois, actually. I'm trying to remember. It was when I was living in Illinois that I heard this, because people have names for their pets, obviously. So you go to a veterinary clinic, and some clinics will use your pet's name with your last name. So Fluffy Johnson, if your cat's name is Fluffy, for example. And somebody got a hold of those lists of names from veterinary clinics, and they have been processed into voting. And I want to say that was in Illinois. I might be wrong. So yeah, your pets may have voted at one point or another, because Bulldozer says his cat's brain deficient. Well, they all are. They're not qualified to vote, but it's okay. It's okay. Every vote counts. As we roll into the next subject here, and this one is about Mayor Adams. Mayor Adams in trouble again. He's in trouble again. Keisha says that's so stupid. Well, what's so stupid is that somebody probably got away with it, because I'm sure nobody was caught. And Flukeman says it would be impossible for the IRS to know you have a garage sale unless they take control of your CCTV and watch everything. Yes, I'm talking about CCTV again. Well, no, all they have to do is slowly, and it's already happening in many states, make it so that you need to purchase a permit, and then they can do an assessment based off that. If you got a permit for a yard sale, you had income. And David Hacker is here. Glad you could make it, as well as Deanna. It says Fluffy Johnson is a Democrat. I know it. I know. I think it was Democratic voting, too, that they were caught in. I think it was Illinois. I could be wrong. The Western Journal has this article. Democrat New York City Mayor Adams cancels all meetings after the FBI raids his top fundraiser. And I wanted to pull this up. Haven't even read the article yet. This is not the first time Adams has been tied to, while being mayor of New York, someone that ended up in a big scandal like this. It keeps happening. The last one was that Bling pastor. You remember him? We talked about him some months ago. He finally got arrested for fraud because he's been in trouble in the past for identity theft and Ponzi schemes and stuff before he found religion. And he's sitting in jail now, I think. Adams was connected to him. And this is not the first time, but we'll get into the article. New York Mayor Eric Adams canceled his meetings in Washington on Thursday and returned to the city he leads after the FBI raided his chief fundraiser's home, the New York Times reported. A source told the Times that agents from the FBI's Public Corruption Squad in New York questioned Brianna Suggs while they raided her home. An FBI spokesman confirmed that agents were at Suggs' Brooklyn home carrying out law enforcement action, the outlet reported. The Times said it wasn't able to reach her for comment, and Adams' campaign spokesman Evan Thies didn't immediately respond to its request for one. Nicholas Bice, or Biasi, a spokesman for the federal prosecutor's office in Manhattan, declined to comment. Meanwhile, Adams spokesman Charles Kretschmer Lutvak said he was not aware of the raid. I bet. Adams was on his way to D.C. to address the illegal immigration crisis before suddenly changing plans. He was on his way to D.C. to beg for taxpayer money. The mayor returned to New York to deal with a matter, a spokesman told the Times. He was scheduled to meet with representatives from Congress, as well as Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson and Denver's Mayor Mike Johnson. No relation. Adams previously posted a video on X, formerly known as Twitter, of himself on a plane discussing the goal of the trip. Oh, isn't that cute? We are headed to D.C. to meet with our congressional delegation in the White House to address this real issue with the asylum and migrant issue in our city. And we'll keep you updated as the day goes, the mayor said. He was going there to beg for funding. That's all it is. That's all it is. As we get on here. And Daddy Nolly says, if my dog voted for Biden, he's out. Yeah, put him outside. Put him outside. And Gary says, damage control intensifies. Yeah, he needs to come back. If he wasn't tied to it, he wouldn't have to bother to come back. Oh, that jackass. Okay. His name's in there somewhere, and he's afraid the FBI will find it. Bulldozer says, we're all on some NSA or FBI database. Make no mistake, everyone here is being watched. Yeah, I know I am. Or was anyway. Helter says, since he has been criticizing the administration's handling of the border crisis, it looks like they have set the Justice Department after him. That could be, because the IRS and the FBI are often, and the ATF, are often weaponized against people that go against the grain with government. And remember, this is a 180 guy. Mayor Adams has done a complete 180, because he was all for the illegal immigration and putting it on a pedestal and laughing at southern states like Texas, for example, for having trouble dealing with it until it ended up on his doorstep. Now he's crying. And now Dragon says absolutely no way that Adams didn't know what was going on. He's a shady bastard. Well done, New York City. You traded one crook for another, just like Chicago. Yeah, because Chicago's mayor is no better than Lightfoot, probably even worse than Lightfoot. Quite frankly, they're in trouble down there. They're in trouble down there. All of these major Democrat-run citizens, Democrat-run cities are in trouble. They're all in trouble, and those lawmakers are getting well paid for it. They're getting well paid to screw over their constituents. Gary says, everybody say hi to the, oh yeah, I know, Homeland Security who are monitoring us right now. They very likely could be, or at least a bot. Where you going, Dusty? Dusty got up. And Cyberjack Sr. has joined us today. Glad you could make it. You're not going in there. Come here. Yeah, sit down. Anyways, they're getting well paid for it. So well paid that they're being showcased in the news. And this is in the New York Post. New York Post. House lawmakers spent $1.4 million in tax dollars for DC apartments dining. I needed $1.4 million for my restaurant expenses. No, I rarely ever go out to eat. Rarely. And if I do, my wife is always with me. And we keep it simple. Actually, there's a local pizza place that's a mom and pop operation that we really like, that we go to. And occasionally we go to a hibachi grill, but that's once in a blue moon. Here we go. Your tax dollars at work and play. House lawmakers have spent $1.4 million in federal money subsidizing their lodging and dining in Washington, D.C., with several millionaire members among those bilking Americans for the funds. A Democrat-led provision introduced to the House Rules Handbook in the 117th Congress provides members with $34,000 annually to pay for rentals, hotel stays, and meals while going about their official duties in the nation's capital. The Washington Free Beacon reported $34,000 annually. There are people out there working full-time jobs not making that much. A total of 217 lawmakers, 113 Democrats, and 104 Republicans have taken advantage of this subsidies in the first half of this year. House disbursement records reviewed by the outlet show. Rather than produce receipts, the members only have to list their eligible expenses on lodging, meals, and incidentals related to official travels and duties. According to the handbook, House lawmakers have spent 1.4. It bounced. Here we are. Well, I lost my place because it bounced when I opened the thing. Where did we go? I'll try to find it out. House lawmakers have spent $1.4 million in taxpayer dollars to subsidize lodging. Democrat-led provision. Here we go. The rules change was described as a tax-free $34,000 pay bump by the New York Times, which first calculated their reimbursement figure for members in January. According to the outlet, Democrats on the House Administration Committee introduced the change, but the need for supplemental funding was first brought up by former Mississippi GOP Representative Greg Harper. So they have a new stipulation, a new privilege for people in the House, in the Congress, that they can get $34,000 a year tax-free to help to cover hotel and restaurant accommodations. And they don't even have to provide receipts to get it. All they have to do is write it down. Yeah, $1,000 at Red Lobster. I don't know. $500 at Holiday Inn. And the committee will just take their word for it, and they'll get that extra $34,000 at your expense. at the taxpayer's expense. Unbelievable. Bulldozer says he's definitely against the grain. Imagine yourself at the Tea Party back in the 1700s, not an impulse reaction, but think of the damage they had to endure. And Bull 38, America is full of NPCs that could care less about these corrupt politicians as long as you don't interfere with their bread and circus. Prep hard because soft men have caused hard times now. I agree. Yes, indeed, they have. Gary says, I think your kitty has been recruited by the IRS. Is that internal cat agency? Is that what it is? Michael Adams says 1.4 million is nothing. Loose change lost in the couch. Yeah, but I mean, they each get to pocket $34,000 for restaurant and hotel accommodations, and they don't even have to prove they went to a restaurant or hotel. Must be nice. It adds up, basically, is the argument. You know, Bulldozer says, love it. Cat Intel Agency. There you go. Urban says, DC, that's not rental prices. Fluke Man says, I vote political parties decide what their rivals' parties should be paid. And then Keisha says, jokingly, I can see them spending that much at Red Lobster. Some of their meals are $40 a plate. I don't know. I don't go to Red Lobster. I haven't been to, I won't go to Red Lobster. I won't go to Red Lobster. I haven't gone for I don't think I've been to a Red Lobster for 15 plus years at least, because it was so freaking salty and it was expensive, really expensive. And I didn't think the food quality was that good either, quite frankly. But yeah, and again, I don't go out to restaurants all that often anyways. My wife and I are perfectly content to sit in like Steak and Shake and get fries and a grilled cheese sandwich and a couple of shakes and just share it because we're simple. Now, this is one you probably all saw this article, and this is from GB News. Kamala Harris launches Islamophobia strategy on same day FBI confirms anti-Semitism is at historic levels. And there's a couple of reasons this is being done, and I'll tell you what they are. And there she is, looking shocked, deer in headlights. I'll let you look at that picture for a moment, because Kamala Harris and sweet old, dear old, lovable old Uncle Joe, Teddy Bear Joe, are worried about Americans being Islamophobic and they want to start a campaign. Yeah, that happened. Vice President Kamala Harris has unveiled an anti-Islamophobia strategy amid soaring anti-Semitism incidences across the U.S. The White House has been criticized following the announcement of the project, which came just a day after FBI Director Christopher Wray informed senators that anti-Semitism is reaching historic levels. In a video released on social media, Harris said plans will aim to protect Muslims and those perceived to be Muslim from hate, bigotry, and violence, and to address the concern that some government policies may discriminate against Muslims. In the wake of violence in Israel and Gaza, Wray said the number of anti-Semitic incidences across the U.S. has increased, with 60% of all religious-based hate crimes targeting Jewish people. It follows the arrest of a Cornell University student on Wednesday who was accused of making threats to bring a gun to campus and rape Jewish women and behead Jewish babies. That did happen. Republican Senator Tom Cotton has criticized the new government initiative, slamming the White House's, quote, top concern after the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust and a breakout of pro-Hamas activism on campuses. The White House is claiming Islamophobia is our top concern, he tweeted. I agree. Harris said, for years, Muslims in America and those perceived to be Muslim have endured a disproportionate number of hate-fueled attacks. As a result of the Hamas terrorist attack in Israel and the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, we have seen an uptick in anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, anti-Semitic, and Islamophobic incidences across America. Really, show me one in the media, including the brutal attack of a Palestinian-American woman who is Muslim and the killing of her 6-year-old son. So, all right. Either you're a coward, either you're a coward and you're pandering to Muslims because you're afraid they're going to bring their jihad to the streets in the US, which they will do anyways, no matter how much you pander. That will still happen anyways, no matter how much you suck up to Muslims with something like this. Or B, you're trying to gaslight everybody. You're trying to piss American people off and get them even further divided, or a combination thereof. It could be both. You could be pandering because you're scared of these people and you want to act like you're their friend, which you never will be. If Hamas took over the United States tomorrow, they'll kill you first. Or again, you're trying to gaslight people to get them even further at each other's throats, as if we're not already divided enough with all the fake racism and fake sexism and fake everything else ism. This is absolutely brain dead here. It's insulting. It's insulting. And I'm tired of feeling like I'm being insulted by our government. Mr. Scott says, I'm curious if there's a correlation between people that don't internal monologues and people we consider NPCs. And Bull says, have you guys already talked about the speech from the T.org leader from the Lebanon that happened at 9 a.m.? No, I don't think I saw that. Dragon says she'll do this from scratch while ignoring the 50,000 people every day she lets sneak across the border. There's no way she doesn't know about the danger illegal border crosses cause for us. It's coming. Nature Nerd says Islam has anti-Western values at heart. It's that simple. Bulldozer says 8 tours in Iraq. I know these soft people who want all of us to sing Kumbaya. Yeah, if you've been over there, you already know. And some people need to see it. Some people, they can't put the pieces together themselves. They need to actually see it firsthand. They hate us. And they hate these people that pander even more. Again, like a couple of weeks back, and I picked on Queers for Palestine. You've got to be kidding. You've got to be kidding. Again, they will kill you first. If they took over tomorrow, you'd be the first one on the chopping block. Preparedness says one just has to look at which aspect of humanity has been causing trouble throughout the ages. Yeah, indeed. And Helta says, if Islam is so great, Harris, go move there and criticize their targeting of babies, see how far that gets you. And they can't even, if it's so great, they'd be able to agree on anything without killing each other. Making the point once again that before this incident on October 7th, I think it was about 10 years ago, Hamas and another extremist group in the Gaza were fighting with each other. Hamas won. The other group no longer exists. Those people have been exterminated. It was genocide. They no longer exist. They're gone. You never heard anything about it in the news. Nobody cared. The world yawned and moved on. If Hamas eliminated every Jew on the planet tomorrow, they'll go fight with somebody else the next day. And it'll probably be another Muslim group because they just cannot get along. Urban says non-binary blue hairs would disappear in 24 hours after Hamas took over America. How can infidels not see this? They don't want to see it. They don't want to see it. They're putting on their own blinders. Flukeman says, if this is real, why didn't they see who were attacking Muslims? Some people attacked Asians during C virus. Suspicious, very suspicious. And Gary says, Dr. Bill Warner differentiates between religious Islam and political Islam, excuse me. And Merv says, I guess he means, our governments betrayed us and they would love for us to focus on each other. They always betray us. And the bigger the government gets, the more it happens. The more it happens. At least if you're under a dictatorship, a straight dictatorship, they don't have to hide it. It's not a deception. You just know they're going to screw you, and it's out in the open. Like Pakistan throwing out all of the Afghani people. They said they were going to do it. They don't care what the world says. They don't care what the UN says. This is what we need to do. Get the hell out of here. But in the Western world, we got to fake it. We got to pretend. We got to act like something else is going on. It's absolutely frustrating. If you're going to be evil as hell, at least be honest about it. Nature Nerd says, I bet the terrorists are very insulted that people with rainbow flags support them. They might be, actually. And Keisha said, Muslims insist that they are a religion of peace. I am as of yet to see that. I guess they'll be at peace when there's no one else left. But like I pointed out, they can't even get along with each other. So they'll be at peace when there is a single Muslim person left alive on the planet. He'll be all by himself. That's how that will work. Unfortunately, I just can't see it. Now, for onto the disturbing news of the day. This is one that's flying under the radar, and it happened in Canada. It happened in Canada. Where are the Canadians today? I know there's a couple of people here from Canada. You're going to love this. And Fluke Man says Western ideology is fake. Fake it until you make it. Yeah, but the problem is they never make it, so they just keep faking. And Bulldozer says he's got to go. Glad you could make it today. Then you can catch the rest of it later because, of course, this will be saved on YouTube, on Coffee Talk, and on Prepper University. It should be saved. I don't think I'll get in too much trouble. But, yeah, this is the story of the day. Oh, Urban says, are you talking about the suicide capsules in Canada? No. You might know what this is. You might have seen it, but it's flying under the radar. It's a very suppressed story. And Paul says a religion of pieces. There you go. Who was that? I come in peace. Dolph Lundgren, the alien drug dealer, and all he knew how to say was "I come in peace." And when Dolph killed him, he says, "You'll go in pieces." And there's Bingo. He says he's late. Yes, you are, but that's okay. Glad you could make it. Glad you could make it today. Here comes your Canadian news of the day. Canadian news of the day. This is from the Western Journal. You will love this one. Swimming competition permits 50-year-old man to compete against 13-year-old girls in a swimming competition. 50-year-old man. And here he is. That's his picture. That's the swim meet. And that's dude. He's not a dude, though. He's not. I know that looks like a 50-year-old man, and his birth certificate and his driver's license and his social security card. I don't know if you guys have a social security card in Canada. Something like it, I'm sure. Says he's 50-year-old man. But he's not, because this is obviously a 13-year-old girl, because he says he is. He says he is, and the Canadian government backed him up. Yeah, Keisha says, oh my God, this is sad. It's going to get worse. It says a regional swimming competition in Canada has been caught allowing a 50-year-old man who claims to be a transmogrified. You know why I say transmogrified, because of YouTube. And it was allowed to race against 13 and 14-year-old girls, and then denied it when he was quizzed by a reporter after the event. The incident occurred on October 20th at Toronto's Markham Pan Am Center during the Richmond Hill Aquatic Center's Fall Classic Swim Meet, in which a swimmer going by the name of Melanie Weishart, that's her, Melanie Weishart, swam against 9 girls aged between 13 and 14. Melody is 50, and it's listed as 50 on the meet program, which has been discovered by the news outlet Rebel News. Melody Weishart, 50-year-old male, was able to identify as a little girl and swim with 13-year-old girls. Rebel News noted that the 50-year-old Melody Weishart was actually a male-born transmogrified swimmer named Nicholas Cepeda, a member of the Orangeville Otters Swim Club. The outlet sent reporter David Menzies to the Markham Pan Am Center to ask why they allowed Cepeda to race against teenagers, but the answers were hard in coming. So they didn't want to talk to reporters about it. Well, let me see. Where are we here? Because it bounced, and I don't want to lose my place. I hate when it does that. At first, the organizers to whom Menzies spoke to tried to deny that the transmogrified subpoena participated at all. Then they waved Menzies off, saying that they had no desire to get into a debate about transmogrified athletes. The entire swim meet, Menzies pointed out, was categorized by gender and age, meaning that a 13-year-old female could not race against a 17-year-old male. That is, that no one over the age of 17 should have been at that swim meet. It was for people aged 13 to 17. Organizers told Rebel News that no representatives of the region's swimming governing bodies, Swim Ontario and Swim Canada, will be commenting on the issue because they're too busy to talk to the press. They're too busy. They don't have time for that. And Preparedness says, I bet he wanted to turn up wearing a mankini. Ugh, gross. Nature Nerd says, Vancouver, British Columbia legalized all drugs, causing chaos and thousands of overdoses and deaths since January. There was a video showing how it's even worse than LA, Seattle, and Portland. Evil policy. They want to get rid of them. Urban says, yes, I heard about the 50-year-old pervert who's trying to force underage girls to share their nudity in front of his obvious arousal. Blah. And Keisha says, I wonder if I went to the bank and identified as a millionaire. No, that won't work, Keisha. They'll probably arrest you. Prime Mover says, I love it. This is the type of thing that shuts leftists the hell up. Gary says, this used to be a thing called tar and feathers. Yeah, actually, they used to do that to tax collectors back in the day, tarred and feathered. And it was hard to remove. You had to wait days before you could start peeling it off because the tar would stick to your flesh. Nature says, Tyler Oliveira made the video in Vancouver. I investigated a city where all drugs are legal. Really disturbing footage. I bet. And Fluke Man says, anyone here want to give Trudeau a slap wake-up call? My blood is boiling. He needs more than a slap. Helter says, any parent that lets their child compete in that competition is complicit and a disgrace. And I agree, Helter. I would have pulled my kid out if I saw that. I was like, you know what? You're not swimming today, honey. Let's go. Dragon says, it's one thing to lie to yourself, but when you force the rest of us to go along with these lies, you've gone too far. I agree. I absolutely agree. Because they're playing pretend and forcing you to go along with it. They're making you also play pretend. And if you don't cooperate, then you get in trouble for it. Prime Mover says, why be mad when it's easier to point and laugh? And Deanna says, this is disgraceful. Between this nonsense and the dirty hockey player that killed another player, time to boycott sports, ? And Nathan says, what do you expect, Trudeau's Canada? He probably approves. Yeah, he'll pretend to go along. And two other things I'm reading through here really quickly while I've been talking. And I cannot find, it says that they were not able to get any feedback as to whether or not he shared the locker room, that the organizers refused to answer the question. And I'm like, please tell me that this 50-year-old man was not in the locker room with these little girls. Please tell me that. But it's not confirmed. It's not confirmed. Also, I'd like to know who won. The article doesn't say. Did he win? Did he beat the little kids? Because apparently he's a professional swimmer, even though he is 50. He is 50. He's not in his prime. But I'm curious to know if he beat the little girls. And if so, does he feel good about that? Does that make you feel good? You beat 13-year-olds in a swim meet? I'd like to know how he placed. Urban says, can't recall if this was already discussed, but a group of martial arts biological females. Yes, we did. We talked about that this week. And that was right here in Atlanta. It was a judo competition. And it was two transmogrified men, or that is two men who claimed they were female. There was no nothing to demonstrate transmogrification, but they claimed to be female. And all of the female participants walked out. They would not participate. And those men won by default. and showed proudly their medals with the pride flag. Pitiful. Doug says lefties are open to all options as long as it aligns with their options. Great channel. Have a great weekend. Well, I appreciate it. I try to be a good channel. Nature Nerd says Canada and America's leaders are gaslighting enablers to the max. And Urban says, imagine being a large-sized male with full musculature who's proud to win against average-sized women in grappling and martial arts competitions. Some men have no shame. And then Bingo says, I was going to say something about a 1,000-yard shot, but I'm afraid FBI would kill me in my sleep. Yeah. And Gary says, number 5 on Saul Alinsky's rule for radicals doesn't work on clowns and village idiots. And Armand says, what do we need to see before the country's collective insanity cannot be ignored by the average person? I don't know, but I think we're past that point. I think we're long since past that point, and I'm surprised we're still going. I'm surprised we're still going, because every day, I mean, it's like an old comedy sketch of things that are ridiculous that could never happen, but they are. And again, I'm going to see if I can find out. I want to know how he placed, because if he won, I'm going to be even more upset. I'm going to be more upset. Nathan says, I heard a father once say, if a man who identifies as a woman tries to use a woman's change room with my daughter present, I'll make sure he needs to use the ambulatory restroom. Now, you make sure he needs to go in the women's bathroom for real, if you catch my drift. And here's one that we've been talking about off and on for a while, because I have a great deal of speculation about what's going on in California. I think that the lawmakers of California are in bed with, and this is my opinion, I have to state that so that I don't get in too much trouble, that the lawmakers all the way up to the top, all the way up to the governor's office in California, are in bed with these big tech giant billionaires to destroy as much real estate in California as possible, with abandoned and dilapidated buildings and with homeless people and with drug addicts, so that they can buy it up cheap and then rebuild it into their personal utopias and their little 15-minute cities. I think that's why California is being slowly deconstructed the hard way. And I see Bingo says he's got to go, and he'll catch the playback. I'm glad you were able to make it. And Flukeman says, is a transmogrified boxer, a UFC fighter, lost all her fights to biological men. Oh, did it freeze up? There we go. This is from the New York Post. And it says, controversial mega development with 45,000 homes nears approval in Central California. And there it is. 45,000 potential new homes across 9,000 acres in Fresno, and is being planned. Hold still. Freaking pop-up ads. Anyway, a controversial mega development that could bring 150,000 new homes to Central California is poised for approval, according to a report. The project, called the Southeast Development Area, will add 45,000 potential new homes across 9,000 acres in Fresno, and is being planned in order to create more housing supply at all income levels, city officials said in a 124-page draft of the plan. So this is the first 45,000 of 150,000 homes in a development in Fresno. The outline, however, fails to indicate how much CETA will cost taxpayers and how many of the proposed 45,000 homes would be affordable housing, and how the city of Fresno plans to pay for CETA's infrastructure costs. These key details wouldn't be worked out until after the city council approves or denies the project, city planning director Jennifer Clark told Fresno Land. So they won't tell you how they're going to do it until after you approve it and give them the tax money. These key details, I read that. Critics of CETA included Sanger's Unified's Deputy Superintendent Eduardo Martinez, who said the development would double the size of the public school district, requiring 16 new schools in order to accommodate CETA's young residents. The proposed development in California is California's fifth largest city, comes amid a nearly $1 billion land grab. Here it comes, by Silicon Valley elites who hoped to build a utopian city north of the Bay Area. We've been talking about this off and on for months. So, and they got a $1 billion land grab on property that should have been worth about $6 or $7 billion. And they got it that cheap because it's all abandoned and dilapidated buildings now, loaded with homeless people and drug addicts that they're running out. Similar to controversial Solano County proposal, Fresno's plan would convert a rural swath of land into a walkable neighborhoods where residents could get a town center, elementary school, recreation area, community garden, and local shops all on foot. They've also been buying up a lot of farmland, and that ties in with what they said there. Getting the farmland really, really cheap somehow. But there you go. Gary says, big city land grabs weaponizing the homeless. Exactly. And Dragon says, you know what happens when the government inserts itself into any market, right? More shortages. Good job, California. They're doing it on purpose. Nature Nerd says government houses will make the country in debt, and private construction companies won't be able to compete, causing a worse housing shortage. It'll continue to get worse. And I'm going to show you here. This is one of their ads, because they're tying it in with this, and you got to look at this one. They're calling it and this is not a news blurb. This is from California. This is California's public website. Housing is too expensive. California social housing. Housing is too expensive for millions of Californians. California social housing can help fix that. Sign up for updates. It's gotten that bad because you have taxed the life out of homeowners for your bullshit programs that don't work. Got rid of the police, flooded the streets with drug addicts and homeless people, so that you can pay for these projects, so that you can encourage these projects. And I'm not supposed to believe that California lawmakers are all on the take, that they're getting behind the door money. More than 2 in 5 Californians spend over 30% of their income on housing. Yeah, because it's all taxes. Millions of Californians struggle to afford housing near jobs, transit, and good schools. 97% of California cities haven't produced enough affordable housing. We need more housing for people at all income levels, and social housing can provide it. What is social housing? Something that's going to be a disaster. Listen to this. How's my time? Publicly owned mixed income housing. Oh, that'll work great. Social housing is publicly backed housing that is affordable to individuals and families of different income levels. It also avoids the problem of concentrated poverty by creating mixed income neighborhoods. This strategy fosters economic opportunity while preserving affordability to low-income households in the community. And according to this, it's proven social housing works. And they give examples, because here's a city in Vienna that they say it works. And here's one in, it says, in the United States, in Maryland, here's a complex, and it will work in California. So they have 2 examples to go by to convince you that it's going to work in California. It works in Vienna. We're not in Vienna. And it works in Maryland. I bet you that place is a disaster behind the scenes. Whenever you mix genres like that, you end up with a damn mess. It's like my wife, before we were married, she lived in Stone Mountain, Georgia, quiet little neighborhood. And then Obama made that law that allowed for Section 8 housing to be anywhere, which Trump overturned during his administration, by the way. When they did that and they moved some Section 8 housing into her neighborhood, break-ins started happening all over the place. Her house was broken into twice after that happened. It doesn't work when you mix this together. You can't have people who make $1 million a year living next door to people who are on welfare, and they're like in the next apartment. It's not going to work. But they want to convince you it works. And this is what these tech billionaires are trying to do. And the government of California has destroyed the state in order to push this agenda. Is it worth it to sell out millions of people for a few dollars? Is it worth it? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. But with that, I got to go ahead and start wrapping things up because we're at the top of the hour and I've got to get going. So thank you, everybody who was able to join us here today on Coffee Talk. And that is, of course, at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube, as well as Prepper University on YouTube, and at Coffee Talk Chat on Twitter, and Fistful of Radio, fistfulofradio.com. Podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. And I'll say thank you to everybody who was able to join us this afternoon. Hope you got something out of the discussion. And of course, we will be doing this again on Monday.